Hi everyone. Today we're going to be discussing the full moon in Leo that's happening on February 12th, 2025 at 24 degrees of Leo. And we'll also talk about some of the themes and the surrounding transits in the beginning, middle of February that are relevant to this full moon. Now, what is a full moon? A full moon is when the sun and the moon are opposing each other. And during this time, we are often illuminated to some sort of emotional insight, to some sort of a feeling. We also can see the culmination of what was began during the new moon in that sign, which for this one is August 4th of 2024. So what was started in August around the Leo part of your chart that is now coming to completion or for culmination. Now, we still have about 6 months left of this cycle until we have another new moon in Leo. But generally around this time, you're seeing the fruits of your effort. You're seeing something come to form regarding something that was started around 6 months ago. And when we do the all signs, we can go deeper into where that could be showing up for you. But first, we need to establish some overview of what is this full moon about collectively. So I've gathered my tools, human design, tarot, I Ching, gene keys, astrology, and obviously my own intuition to get a good picture of what this full moon is really about. As I mentioned, this is happening on February 12th, and the people who are going to be most affected by this are the fixed signs: Leo, Aquarius, Taurus, and Scorpio. Specifically, if you have anything around 24 degrees of those signs, this is going to be aspecting you a lot more. And as I go through the transits, you'll see why that is even more so, because it's not just the sun and the moon that are here that is going to make this a big shakeup for those points of your chart. So any points or planets, 24 degrees Leo specifically, maybe even Taurus, but honestly, even Aquarius and Scorpio as well. These are some of the transits that I'm going to be discussing. Neptune North Node conjunction, Sun Moon square Uranus, which forms a T-square. And we got the Sun Mercury conjunction, Mars trine Saturn, and then the human design of things, and then of course the tarot. I first want to make a note on the Sabian symbol for 25 degrees of Leo. The Sabian symbol is a large camel crossing the desert, and the key word is adequacy, but the theme is endurance. The accent is on endurance, your ability to keep going in the face of hardship and limitation that may be tested. Your greatest advantage lies in taking things one step at a time and keeping your eye on the goal ahead. Believe in yourself, you can do it. Guard against riding roughshod over others in the process of trying to accomplish your own goals. On the other hand, don't overburden yourself by taking on the responsibilities and problems of others. So this symbol is really about courage and personal endurance and the ability to overcome outer limitations and to come out on top of things. And it says here that this is a fearlessness based on experience and the ability to survive hardships. So this is kind of like a refusal to give up and exhaust all means to achieve some sort of a goal, okay? So now that we have a little bit of a background with that, what is Leo about? Well, Leo is ruled by the sun, and the sun wants freedom. It wants sovereignty. It wants to lead, and this is also a very creative sign. This is the fifth house of self-expression. So during this time, we are being asked to express ourselves fully and to see in what areas of our lives is that creativity coming through, or is it not coming through? And of course, this is very much dependent on where this falls in your chart, but regardless, that's what Leo represents. Now, the beginning of this month I talked about in my February overview video can be quite confusing because we've got Neptune and the North Node still, even by this full moon, really close to each other. Neptune's sitting at 28 degrees of Pisces, and the North Node will be at 27 degrees of Pisces. So this is creating a lot of confusion for us. We're feeling like we're kind of just floating. We're not really sure where the next step is. And the interesting thing about this is not only is that in terms of Neptune and North Node coming together in the sign of Pisces, which is mystical, but can also be quite confusing at times because it's ruled by Neptune. But if we think about the fact that 28, 29 degrees, we're entering the end of the entire zodiacal circle, and it's going to start anew with Aries. And this is really prominent because next year, Saturn and Neptune will join at the creator degree, 0 degrees of Aries. This is really, really rare to have the conjunction at 0 degrees of Aries, which means that collectively we are on a precipice of massive change. We can feel this, right? Like old cycles are really wanting to die. But right now, we're not really sure what that next step is. So we're in this space of limbo and confusion and this like dreamlike state almost, which I don't know about you guys, but I've been having really intense dreams lately. And I've been trying to remember them. And I want to also advise you guys, if you're doing anything before you fall asleep, make sure it's something that you would want to contemplate while you're sleeping. I was reading a book last night about alchemical depth psychology, and I was reading about a specific term in alchemy and how that can show up in our dreams. And that night I had a dream about that specific alchemical term. So it was really, really cool. And it reminded me that when we're about to fall asleep, when we're tired and we're getting ready to fall asleep, we're entering into this deeper state of being. It's important that we're not watching anything that we don't want to contemplate on while we sleep. For most of the first half of February, especially, but really as Neptune is finishing up this stay in Pisces, where it will enter Aries on March 30th, but then it will move back into Pisces. And Saturn will do the same thing. It's going to move into Aries and then back into Pisces. So this year is really this change. It's the ending of a cycle. 2025 in numerology is a 9-year, which means that it is about ending because next year is a 1 year, the number of creation. And so right now, this is about healing, closure, endings, doing what we need to do in order to finish out the cycles that we know in our bones are no longer the right path for our hearts. We know something is ending. Don't put too much pressure on knowing how all the steps are going to pan out during this time. We also have the sun and moon squaring Uranus. So this is going to bring a lot of unexpected changes during this full moon. Uranus is at 23 degrees of Aries and it just stationed direct on January 30th. So it's staying at that 23 degrees for all of February, which means it's moving really, really slowly. And Uranus is also changing signs this year. Another moment of massive change, the outer planets changing signs, right? Because Jupiter is also going to change signs this year. I mean, this is really, really crazy, you guys. When we're thinking about Uranus being stuck at this 23 degrees of Taurus, where is that in your chart? Because something there is wanting to change, and this full moon could bring about some sort of a shocking illumination, some sort of an insight, because we have that Sun-Mercury cazimi in Aquarius just days before. So some sort of an insight that is going to help propel you forward into some sort of a change regarding your Taurus and your Leo and possibly even Aquarius houses, right? Because it can really come out, especially with Uranus, but really with any transit, there is always mystery. We don't know exactly how that's going to happen. And the reason why Uranus is liberation and shocking, unexpected events is because it is simply unexpected. We don't know how it's going to plan out. And so we have to have a sense of trust and in the fact that whatever is going on is pushing us towards liberation, more authenticity, and more truth. On the 4th of February, I talked about this a little bit too in my overview video for February, Jupiter is also moving direct. So now we've got Uranus and Jupiter both moving direct, giving us an opening for new directions. But with this Neptune North Node conjunction, we're not exactly sure how that's going to all pan out right now. And so it's more about what do we want? What do we desire? Because we've got channel 3140, which is very much about desires. What do we desire and how can we move towards that around this time? As I mentioned, we've got the Sun-Mercury conjunction in Aquarius just days before this, a cazimi, which gives us some sort of insight into problem solving or something that has kind of puzzled us for a bit. And when we get into human design, we're going to get deeper into this idea of figuring our lives out right now. And I think you guys are going to really like it, because I read a lot of books and I had all these different books that I wanted to read from, but ultimately I landed in a place where I felt like I could sum it up in kind of one major theme. So we'll get there. And around this time too, we've got Mars retrograde in Cancer trine Saturn. Mars is also making a square to Chiron. So Mars in Cancer can be quite protective, and it's not even just protective of itself, but the loved ones and also its homeland. And so when it's squaring Chiron, there is this kind of like Martian energy wanting to fight for our rights. And the US is a very Cancerian country. We have our sun in Cancer in the US, and we are having a lot of changes happening in the US. I plan on making videos about this. We're having our Mars and our Uranus return in the next year or so. Yeah, 2026 is going to be very, very interesting. But it's going to begin with Uranus moving into Gemini later this year. There is a lot of defensiveness and protectiveness over our whatever we deem to be our home. So if we're very patriotic, that would be our country. But it could also mean our family unit, and it can mean our own sense of protectiveness of our emotions. But this Mars can be very driven by emotional impulses. And when I looked at the human design chart, which, yeah, we're just gonna go old school here. Technology is not my thing. Whenever people are like, millennials are good with technology, I'm like, where? Not this millennial. My Gen Z brother, though, he has got it really good. He's always teaching me stuff. I'm like, what? You can do that? But when we look at the human design chart here, we see that it is quite emotionally driven time for us. And we can see that by looking at this. That's our solar plexus. That is where we feel our emotions. And I talk about this often, but this is an area of our lives, collectively, that is not very well integrated. That's why we're kind of an emotional mess collectively, right? We have all these problems connected to our nervous system. We have all these chronic health issues connected to our nervous systems because we haven't fully integrated that awareness center yet. And as you can see, we've got multiple channels, which I'll talk about a little bit. So us wanting to speak about our experiences, and also us feeling this desire and impulse and pressure to act upon our desires. So if you don't normally have these channels in your body graph, then you're going to possibly feel very driven to act on emotional impulse, to have a fantasy that's not really grounded in reality and then want to make it a reality. It could also just be with so many gates defined in the solar plexus. It could also simply be that you are feeling very emotional around this full moon. Mars in Cancer, square Chiron, bringing up old wounds. But then it's trine Saturn. And this kind of brings me back to the Sabian symbol a little bit, in which we are talking about having endurance and believing in ourselves that we can do what we set out to do. The thing is, we don't want to fall into the trap of believing that every single fantasy and every single desire has to be acted on. And so that's where the challenge comes, is like, what are you building? What is worthy? Saturn says, what is worthy of actually bringing into form? And it's giving Mars retrograde the stamina, the endurance to start planning those things. Mars is still retrograde until the 23rd, so not really the time to really start moving quite yet, but it's giving us the endurance to start building on something. And when Mars goes direct and trine Saturn again, that is going to be such a massive support to have Saturn having our back in building this new life. But this is when you're dealing with such a massive change, this is not like a 2-month process for most of us. This is probably going to be all of this year and into next year as well, when we have that Saturn-Neptune conjunction at 0 degrees of Aries. Your Aries chart is the part where you have Aries in your chart. In March, you're going to have a lot of change. Yes, we'll talk about that. But overall, over the next several years, really, we're starting a new 36-year cycle with Saturn and Neptune conjunct at that point next year. I believe it's in February of next year. It is going, you're going to see definitely changes this year too when Neptune moves there and then Saturn moves there. Lots of change in that part of your chart. So we'll talk about that as it gets there. In human design, this full moon is happening in gate 4. Gate 4 is, and this is the line 6, so gate 4, line 6. Gate 4 is called the gate of formalization. In the gene keys, it goes from the shadow of intolerance to the gift of understanding. And in the I Ching, the hexagram is known as inexperience or youthful folly. As I was reading about this, I came across something known as koans, which is what we're going to talk about a little bit. But let me give you a little bit of idea of what this is talking about. Gate 4 has a very logical energy to it. It's in our ajna, which is, you can think of it as the modern third eye, but in human design, it's in the ajna. And it's the ability and the desire to try to figure things out. Line 6 specifically, Chetan Parkin says that he calls this being too clever for your own good. It's this idea that people who have this in their chart, but all of us are feeling this collectively, might be trying to figure something out with the Sun-Mercury conjunction, okay? And we may get some insight into it. Mercury rules our mind, and it's kind of like, I don't like saying it this way because I'm Mercury ruled, and but it's like our lower mind, I guess you could say, and Uranus is supposed to represent the higher octave of Mercury. So it's supposed to be our higher mind that is more interested in authenticity and truth rather than details and the facts that Mercury is. Now, I do think that Mercury has a lot, Hermes is so much more multidimensional than that, but if we're just simplifying things for teaching, that's what we're gonna say, right? So when Sun Mercury comes together, we get this insight, oh, we can figure this problem out. Now, if you've been here, you know that, I study Buddhism, and in so many different frameworks, we talk about the mind, human design as well. The mind should be a slave, not a master, right? But so many of us are running with the mind, completely making all of our decisions. And this is where we get into trouble. Recognizing that logic alone can never figure anything out. And this is what the gene key for intolerance is really talking about, is that when you see that logic can be used to prove and disprove almost anything, you recognize that there has to be something that goes beyond the logical mind. And that's why the gift is understanding, but he's speaking of understanding of the greater cycles and themes in life rather than just understanding something intellectually. Seeing that realization that our minds can only figure out so much, and life, not everything is solvable. In here, Chetan says, your mind will always try to dominate life with its solution mechanism. Your mind takes over and runs the show till you realize that it isn't really working for you. You can't always think your way through situations. You have to go deeper into yourself, and this requires discipline. Is a solution needed? Is the timing right to offer or provide a solution? Am I the one who needs to get involved? And he gives this really great example about if you go to your friend's house and you just walk right past them and you start fixing their bookshelves and dusting off certain things in their house. It's like, well, you certainly solved a problem, but that was really rude of you. And you just completely forgot about your friend, and he maybe didn't need that. Was that really necessary? And so this kind of came up for me in the tarot as well. And in the Sabian Symbol, it talked about guard against fixing your situation or enduring at all costs that you ruin your relationships, or you just run over other people and you forget that there are people here to help you, and that life is more than just achieving goals, right? Because Leo, being the sun, is about the self, right? And sovereignty, like I said. But it's looking at the sun in Aquarius, which is about humanity. It's about the collective. It's about others and where we belong in the greater scheme of things, right? And Mars in Cancer. Cancer is also the 4th house, is where we feel like we belong on a very deep emotional level. This brings me to something called a koan. And it's of the Zen tradition. And I'm reading this article, and it's by someone called named Sofo Archon. So I just want to, give him credit there, because I really like the way that it was very simple that he talked about this. So what is a koan? Well, a koan is a very specific riddle used by Zen masters, Zen Buddhist masters, to help teach their students without giving them much statements. Because in Zen, and really in a lot of these older traditions, the teachers didn't talk a lot, which sounds very interesting to us, because when we think of a teacher, we think of this, right? Like, I'm standing in here and talking to you guys. But spiritual teachers, I'll give you an example. Confucius was a great master, right? Great spiritual teacher. And he said that if a student does not, if he'll give them 1/4 of the message, if the student does not go back and then reflect upon the other 3/4 of the message, then when he comes back, Confucius would not teach him. Because so much of teaching requires the other person to desire to actually learn and to contemplate things on their own. So you get a simple message from the master, and it's up to you to kind of figure this out. But koans are something that Zen Buddhists use specifically in order to emphasize the paradox of reality, right? Which is something that requires you to go beyond the logical mind. So this koan system is a way of transmitting their teachings completely non-verbally. And so Sofo says this, he says, koans are carefully devised nonsensical riddles which are meant to make the student of Zen realize the limitations of logic and reasoning in the most dramatic way. They are designed precisely to stop the thought process and thus make the student ready for the nonverbal experience of reality. He says, like, the whole point of this is to create a true mental impasse, a state of sustained tension in which the whole world becomes an enormous mass of doubt and questioning. And in doing so, it puts us in a higher state of consciousness. In the Gene Keys, whenever we talk about the shadows going into the gifts and then to the city, which the city is like the ultimate divine expression, here on planet Earth, most of us are going for the gift. So that's why I don't really talk about the city a lot, but it's important to know, like, ultimately what you're going for. He talks a lot about, in all of the Gene Keys pretty much, how transforming the state of consciousness from the shadow to the gift often requires this sudden shift of consciousness. Now, what planet is known for bringing sudden shifts of consciousness? Uranus. What planet is big during this full moon? Uranus. The only thing is we have to suspend believing that we can figure it out solely using the logical mind. And he gives a really great example about how this paradox confronted physicists at the beginning of atomic physics, because the truth was hidden in paradoxes that could not be solved by logical reasoning. Physicists were like, what is happening? Why are atoms doing these certain things? They had to be understood in terms of a new awareness, the awareness of atomic reality. And he says here, the teacher here, of course, was nature, who, like the Zen masters, does not provide any statements. She just provides the riddles. And the koan will cease to be paradoxical when you recognize the unique solutions, unique Uranus. And once that happens, it actually becomes a profoundly meaningful statement made from the state of consciousness which it has helped to awaken. So just for fun, I just want to ask you guys these two that I guess are very common, and if you're just interested in these koans. One of them is, what was your original face? The one you had before your parents gave birth to you. And the second, this one I saw everywhere, it says, you can make the sound of two hands clapping. Now, what is the sound of one hand? Love that. I absolutely love that, and I want to share that with you guys because I think it's such a big part of this transit. So many aspects of it, shifting into different consciousness, having unique solutions to something that transcend the logical mind and bring us into a state of deeper awareness, so that when we are going through this period of transition and change, we recognize that this new period that's coming towards us is not going to be one if we are approaching this with a desire for evolution and growth and awareness. It's not going to be one that we can only figure out logically. Well, what's the next step? How am I going to do this? Well, there needs to be trust. Neptune, North Node conjunction, Neptune in Pisces, North Node in Pisces, Saturn in Pisces, right? Like all this stuff in Pisces requires trust, surrendering to the paradox of reality. One of my favorite books to read is the Tao Te Ching. The Tao Te Ching is made on purpose to be paradoxical. You read things and it doesn't make sense, and you're not supposed to be able to make sense of it because reality is paradoxical. And the more, as somebody, okay, you're talking to somebody who spent most of my life being very intelligent and being able to figure everything out until I got to certain points in my life where, and by the way, when you figure things out and when you find a meaning, which I think everything has a meaning, but we don't know what that meaning is, right? Everything that we believe the meaning to be is our subjective conjecture. We don't know if that's actually the meaning. We're just guessing because we have signs or we looked at the astrology chart, but we don't actually know. We're simply human, right? We're just assuming that that is what it probably is. And then we make decisions based off of that story that we made. So much of our reality is beyond mental comprehension. And when I started coming up against these things that I couldn't figure out, and I was like, this is impossible. If I just research more, if I just study more, I can figure this out. And I ultimately came to a point in my consciousness a few years ago where I really realized that there are some things that don't make sense. They just simply don't. And it wasn't until then that I was able to start understanding things like the Tao Te Ching and reading some of these old philosophical texts that leave room for the paradox, that don't give you the answer but give you the riddles. But you get to this point of incredible mental tension. Richard Rudd says, well, this can create like two situations. It can be the repressive, where you get somebody who just like feels that mental tension and then gives up and just says, you know what, I'm just dumb. I just can't figure this out. But actually underneath that is fear. Fear of not being able to handle the responsibility of even trying to move towards this problem. And then on the other side of it, he talks about how this is someone who's like nitpicking and who finds any sort of detail in order to exert their repressed anger. And so if something is not even wrong, they'll find a way to make it wrong. And they just become very, very close-minded and narrow and obstinate in their way of thinking about things because they need to prove to themselves that they are intellectually figuring something out, and confirming the internal stories that they are trying to give themselves to make them feel safe and secure. And so regardless, at some point, this mental tension gets so strong that I had to recognize there has to be something else. And in that moment, it was like a switch, right? So this is giving us that kind of energy available to us, right? It doesn't mean it's just going to naturally happen for everyone. It's energy, because what can also happen with Uranus square the sun and the moon can be incredible restlessness, especially if you have, like I said, anything around 24, 23, 24, 25, even 22 degrees of the fixed signs. You could be feeling super restless, have a lot of anxiety. The mind could be going crazy. You might be feeling a lot of pressure to act towards all these different things. But ultimately, what's trying to happen is to transform this mental tension into something greater, right? And this is a forever process, because as the Zen Buddhists, they get multiple riddles, right? It's not like you have one riddle and now you're just like completely conscious and awake and everything is figured out. No, now you've opened up one aspect of consciousness. And now as you get, one of the things they talk about in the I Ching for hexagram 4 is that as you get deeper into the process, because it's called an experience, right? That's hexagram 4 in the I Ching. As you get deeper into the experience of life, the lessons become harder, therefore keeping you in a relative state of constant inexperience. And so it's just funny because as I was reading the Sabian symbol, and it was saying like, oh, you're feeling fearless because you have experience. And this brings in that whole duality and that paradox of life. It's like we feel like we have this fearlessness and we have this endurance, we're going to figure this problem out. And then we hit this impasse and we recognize and see our own inexperience because now we have passed one lesson, but now we have a new one. And this is the journey of life, you know? That's why I'm here, to talk about these things, because this is what makes me happy. It's what I love talking about. The tarot, Page of Swords and 10 of Cups. I mean, 10 of Cups is like the ultimate card, right? Like we all want this. This is celebration, abundance, emotional abundance in all aspects of life. And the Page of Swords is like intellectual curiosity. And so how I see this, it's kind of like what I was talking about earlier about relationships versus, you know, achieving our goals at all costs and enduring and having that balance, which actually, now that I just said that, in my February overview video, this came up as well. This was in the tarot card reading. This was a huge theme for this month, is that like, how are we keeping balance and harmony in our lives? Well, the Page of Swords could say, instead of finding and nitpicking the details in the other person or in our lives, in our relations to others and to our goals that may have not gone right, instead, can we get really curious about the other side of it, the other aspects of it, right? Maybe if you're in the reactive and you're nitpicking, or maybe if you're in that repressive nature and you're feeling like you're you've kind of given up mentally. Whereas the nitpicking is like, you're going to care what I have to say because I'm going to tell you every single thing that's wrong. And the Page of Swords is saying, instead, can we get curious about the other side of wherever we are sitting with this? Can we get curious about our relationships? Because this is the time to be joyful. This is the time to celebrate emotional abundance, feeling contentment in all areas of our lives, really. Because when we're emotionally content, I mean, it doesn't matter whether that's through work or through relationships, but this is generally, as you can see from the picture, about relationships, about having people around us. And so another way I could see this too is like that balance again, right? Like, how do we maintain harmony and love and relationships in our lives while remaining curious and keeping open lines of communication and desiring to learn and generate these new ideas and not, and then also be able to apply that into our day-to-day relationships. So I feel like this really encompasses what I talked about in the overview for this month, but also, because I actually think I did get the Page of Swords specifically, so that's really interesting. But also specifically for this full moon, remember that balance of like, having that endurance is so amazing. Having that persistence is so amazing. Don't run over people. Believe in yourself, but also remember that you didn't get here alone. And as we talked about everything here, that if you run into issues that seem unsolvable, what was that thing that Einstein said? Insanity is, and who knows if Einstein said this actually, you know, but insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, right? So like if you're trying to figure something out in your life, like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? How am I going to do this? How am I going to fix this? And the mind is taking over and it hasn't worked in the past. You might get with the Sun Mercury Cazimi, it's going to be squared by Uranus. This is going to open you up to the ability of having very unique insights, stepping into new levels of consciousness, so that you can see your problem from a different level, a more objective level. And from there, your heart mind can be involved in decision making. Your inner authority can be a part of the decision making and not just the logical mind. I'm going to pull an empowerment card. Yeah, I'm going to do that. Cool. Let's just leave this off with a good note before we do the all signs. Collectively for this full moon in Leo. Okay, I got River Path. I am adaptable like a flowing river. There are hundreds of ways I can reach any goal, and I move smoothly around obstacles to find my path. My hope flows eternal like a river. I mean, number one, I really like this imagery, but also very much what we're talking about, right? Like unique insights that lead to different ways of moving around the obstacles. And here it's saying, like I said, rather than being like, I'm going to achieve this at all costs, or I'm just going to give up because I'm just too dumb to figure this out. Rather, we become adaptable like the flowing river. And so when we do that, we can see the obstacles in different ways. And when we can do that, we can find new creative solutions. And with that, I will be ending this video, and I'll see you guys for the all signs. For my Aries sun, moon, and rising, you guys have a full moon in Leo happening in your fifth house. Now, what is the fifth house? It's a house of creativity, joy, romance, pleasure, hobbies, entertainment. It's also a house of gambling and children and childlike joy in your life. So around August of last year, something was began in that part of your chart that is now coming to a culmination. Around the same time, you may also be getting some sort of an illumination around themes that have to do with how you express yourself and your communities. Because at the same time, we've got a Sun-Mercury conjunction happening in Aquarius opposite in your 11th house of your networks, your benefactors, your friends, the organizations that you belong to, your hopes and dreams for the future. So what I can see this as for you guys is seeing like your part in the whole, right? Because the fifth house is an expression of the self, right? It's self-expression. It's your creativity. It's how you stand out in the world. Whereas the 11th house is where we kind of find groups that we can fit into. So that requires a level of blending. I could see for some of you guys that, you know, there is this balance that needs to be struck between how you move through the world and how that helps you or doesn't help you in gaining the right friendships, in gaining the right groups, in gaining money from your career too, because the 11th house is money from your career. And then you've got Uranus in the second house forming a T square between the 5th and the 11th. So I could also see this as for some of you guys, this feeling of like having some money tension, and that could be stifling your creativity, that could be stifling your sense of self-expression. Uranus in the second is trying to bring a lot of authenticity around your second house things, so your values, your finances, your resources. And so maybe that's putting some pressure on how you express yourself, right? Like maybe your values are changing. Maybe the way that you make money is changing. Maybe you're like, I want to step into something more creative, or I want to step into something more spiritual. And because of that, you're going to have to change the way that you express yourself in the world. And the marketplace, the other people in your life are going to have to either deal with that or reject it or allow you to belong still. So a lot of issues around like, how do I fit in where I am and how I am? And I do see like finances being a part of this. You guys still have during this time a few placements in your 12th house of spirituality. You do have Venus in your first house. It's in its shadow, going to go retrograde in your sign. So this Venus being in your sign is trying to get you to find harmony and balance in your relationships, in your values, and your finances as well. Maybe, you know, see more beauty in the world, create more beauty in the world, maybe through art. And so all of those things are happening in the background, but this full moon specifically, like I said, is some sort of a fruition. Now, technically around this time it should be coming to a major fruition, but we have another 6 months to go in the cycle until the next new moon that happens in Leo. So some of these things may take time for you to see, but you should be seeing some sort of a creative project come to fruition. Maybe you've changed the way since last August, the way that you wanted to express yourself. And also, like I said, getting some illumination around groups and friends and networks and whether or not they're the right ones for you. This is also the internet. So maybe you're trying to find your way on the internet and finding like, where do I belong here on this internet? It could be like something like social media as well, because you guys have Jupiter in the third house. So maybe some of you guys are trying to grow online presence or start writing a blog or start doing something like that. And so therefore you're trying to find support, you're trying to find your benefactors through expressing yourself. So that's a very unique situation. Yes, of course. Let me pull one tarot card for you guys. I was not expecting to do that, but I was like, let me just pull one. Just finishing message here. Some advice for my Aries sun, moon, and rising for this full moon in Leo. Yeah, I definitely feel like you guys are, and I mean, your ruler is still retrograde, right? This is why I think this is like the Two of Wands. You're setting, because the 11th house too, with your sun, with the sun and Mercury there, that's where your hopes and dreams for the future lie, right? So it's like this, when we're aiming for something more, right? Like, what do we want in this lifetime? This is the kind of energy, and some of you guys may be wanting to travel, having 12th house, a lot of stuff happening in your 12th house can be making you want to go overseas as well, or go into some sort of a retreat or go to a retreat. But your ruler is retrograde until the 23rd. So you guys are planning something. It's still in the beginning phases. You have an idea of kind of where you want to go with it, but you're not really sure how to move forward. And that's perfect because it's not really meant to move forward yet. You're meant to discover. This is what I just heard. You're meant to make a decision in the coming weeks and stick to it, stick to the path. You may not have everything planned out, but how much can you surrender to the experience? Like I said in the beginning of the video, this full moon is so much about surrendering to the experience of things. So yeah, this is wonderful because this is fire. This is you guys. This is you wanting to venture out on something new, but it's not quite there yet. It's more in the planning stages, and it's more about you making the decision to move forward with it now, highlighting a path and then taking it. Okay. So Aries, let me know how it resonates for you guys down below, and I'll see you guys next time. For my Taurus, sun, moon, and rising. Let's get this up to Taurus here. There you go. So you guys have a full moon that is a culmination, a fruition, a completion that's happening in your fourth house of home, your home life, your private life, your relationship with your parents. A lot of times it's the mother. It is about, yeah, your physical home. This is your emotional foundations. This is where the deepest part of your chart is. So what was began around your home life or your inner home around August of last year, it could be coming to a completion at this point. And there is some sort of an illumination happening for you guys around career and life direction and legacy. And this to me is showing, I think to a lot of Tauruses, you're seeing this kind of highlight on this need for balance between these two things. And for both, for it could be either way. Like some of you guys could be experiencing too much one-sidedness in the home life and the internal private world, and some of you guys could be focusing too much on the outer world and not feeling like you're really tending to that inner self. This full moon is going to demand some sort of a balance that is struck there. And you guys could be getting some sort of really electrifying insight around your career and around what path you want to go around your legacy and your sense of social service to the world, your goals that you want to achieve. You might be getting some sort of an understanding, and that's coming from Uranus in your first. And so this is like Uranus in your first since 2018 has been trying to completely shake up your image. Like it wants you to look back to 2018 you and not recognize you. That's and for some of you guys, that's if it's your sun sign, it's more likely to be your career. If it's your moon sign, Taurus, then it's more likely to be your emotions. And then if your rising sign, it's definitely like literally how you present yourself to the world. So that is what is creating all these changes in your work and your home life, and your private life and in your public life. It's Uranus in the first. And during this full moon, it's coming up to a really big peak of like, yeah, what are we doing here? We are changing in so many ways, and Uranus wants to bring authenticity. It wants to bring truth, and therefore it can create a lot of changes in your life that may feel uncomfortable but are necessary for your growth. And for having the North Node and Neptune in the 11th, it's like all of this is necessary in order for you to be able to manifest the communities that you're meant to be in, to have the support that you're meant to have the money that you're meant to have, because the 11th house is money from your career as well. Your Venus right now is in the 12th house. So right now you guys are really, for some of you who have a spiritual practice, that may be kind of pulling you into the shadows right now, which is totally fine. Venus is going to go retrograde here at the end, or I'm sorry, the beginning of March, March 1st. We'll definitely talk about that as it gets closer. But because that's your ruler, that's something you definitely want to look out for. Let's see if the tarot has any advice for you guys for this full moon in Leo. Advice for my Taurus, Sun, Moon, and Rising. I feel like this is really picking up on your guys's Venus, your ruler in the 12th house right now, really getting you guys in touch with this intuition. I love this card because she's so mysterious, right? The High Priestess generally is associated with the feminine. It's generally associated with mystery and intuition, but it's a major arcana, which doesn't surprise me because this is happening in your angular houses, your fourth, 10th, and your first, that T square that we have. And so it's telling me that like you're in a process of deep transition. And it's very important for you during this transition to be going inward, right? Your ruler in the 12th house, not doing so hot right now because it's in the sign of Aries where it doesn't love being, and the ruler of Aries, Mars, is retrograde. So it's really asking you to pull inward, regardless of that like balance I said. Because the thing is that this is about intuition. So using your intuition to guide, am I balancing this outer and inner life? Am I pulled too far into the inner world, and do I need to step out into the outer world, or vice versa? Or this could also be gaining like intuitive insights around your home life or your career. I really think it's going to be around your career and your life path, your legacy, your reputation, your goals that you want to set out to achieve in the outer world, because that's that Mercury Cazimi that's happening in your 10th house. I talk a lot about that more in the beginning part of the video, so make sure you check that out. But yeah, this is a deep calling for you guys to go inward right now, to figure out what needs to happen in your life. Mars is still retrograde in your third house until the 23rd, so not a whole lot of movement yet. But by the end of this month, we're going to have a few days where all planets are direct. So that's going to be really wonderful for everybody. This is asking you to make any major life decisions by going inward. Solitude, retreat, meditation, astrology, guidance, deep guidance, but really from the self, right? Sometimes we need people to bring that out of us, yes, but this message is from you that you need to hear. So Taurus, let me know how that resonates for you guys. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Okay, so for my Gemini, Sun, Moon, and Rising, you guys have this full moon in Leo happening in your third house. What is your third house? Your third house is like your immediate bubble. It's the surroundings that you have around you all the time. It's the routine trips that you take. You know, every day you drive to work, every day you go to the gym or whatever. If you do, good for you. If you go to the gym every day. It is also the house that represents your neighbors, siblings, cousins. This is the house that governs our thoughts and our communication, writing, thinking, speaking. It's also a house of skills and learning skills. It's also in some ways business. In Indian traditions, it's business. So these are kind of the things that could be coming up to a fruition for you right now, some sort of a culmination right now. And whatever this process is around these things could have been something that was started back in August. So maybe you started a new course around August of last year, and now it's coming to a completion. Maybe you set out to learn a new skill. Maybe you set out to go to the gym every day, and now you've accomplished making that a part of your daily habits, a daily routine. That is a part of your immediate surroundings. This could be changes that are happening with your siblings, neighbors, cousins as well. And also, this could be a culmination if you guys started writing. Let's say you decided you want to write more. And this is something that is now coming to a culmination. I was just thinking, I'm a Gemini sun, and around August last year, I decided I really wanted to focus on writing more. And it's been an up and down process, but today, which is I'm doing this before the full moon, but I started a writing and mindfulness class. So it's like meditation and writing. And I'm doing more writing, and that's what I wanted to do. So that's really cool. But this axis that you have right now, because you've got the Kazemi happening in your ninth house, is kind of what I was talking about right now is mindfulness, which is Buddhism, philosophy of Buddhism, which is the ninth house, and looking and balancing it to the third. So making sure this full moon is really wanting to balance this sense of like not getting too caught up in your immediate surroundings, your day to day. Okay, I gotta go to the gym, I gotta write, I gotta eat, and not losing that higher mind, that bigger view of your life where you find meaning and purpose. And maybe you have something like higher education or philosophy, the bigger, because this is ruled by Jupiter, right? So this is grand, this is big, whereas this is ruled by Mercury, the third house. This is about details and facts and opinions. But here we go into more structure and into bigger aspects of life. So making sure that your day to day, like maybe some of you guys, your day to day is too busy and you're not giving enough time to meditation or prayer, spirituality, your faith, your higher education. Maybe you're focused so much on your day to day and learning smaller skills that you're not really looking at the big picture. This is inviting a balance between the big picture. And just days before this full moon, we've got the Sun Mercury Cazimi that is still conjunct in your ninth house. So you guys could be getting some sort of insight, electrifying insights, an innovative solution to some problem that you have around higher education, legal matters, learning, teaching. This is an axis of learning and teaching. Maybe you decide, and the cool thing with Gemini is out of all the other signs, when you have Uranus in the 12th squaring this is out of nowhere. This is coming to you in your dreams. This insight, it is being triggered through your subconscious, through meditation, through subconscious work, through hypnosis, through retreat, because the 12th house is a place of solitude. So make sure, and since 2018, Uranus has been kind of pushing you guys into spirituality and more solitude and saying, hey, this is where your authenticity can be found. This is where your truth can be found, is here in the recesses of your own subconscious mind. And right now it's saying that is what is going to trigger some sort of a change. Maybe some of you guys, like I said, are moving from this like lower mind of details and okay, logic in my everyday into something bigger. Maybe you want to travel more and you want to travel to further away places. You've got the South Node in the fourth house right now, which can actually trigger moving. So for some of you guys, you may be wanting to broaden your horizons and move someplace different, move somewhere far away or something. And all this stuff in your 10th house is putting a lot of pressure on you guys to make sure that like whatever you're doing when it comes to your public life, to your career, to your legacy, to your reputation is coming from a deep sense of integrity, because we've got Jupiter at 11 degrees, which is very close to Aldebaran, which is a star of integrity and war and all these things. But really the core of Aldebaran is that it must stay in integrity all time. So if anything around 9 degrees of Gemini in your chart, that is conjunct Aldebaran, and you want to look into Aldebaran. Is there anything else I want to say? Oh, let me get a tarot card. Gemini readings always are like one of my longest, and I don't honestly think it's because I'm a Gemini. It's because Gemini energy just makes you want to talk, right? And it makes me want to talk. So Gemini advice. Okay, I got this card for you guys very recently. Was it for the month of February? I don't know, but it's collaboration.
I keep hearing this sense of like collaboration. You know, like when Jupiter's in your first house, maybe you're thinking like it's all about me or whatever, but you've got Venus, and it, you know, it kind of is a little bit because wherever Jupiter goes, there's so much, Jupiter shines really brightly on you and expands, right? But there's something here around working creatively with other people. And maybe that's what this third house is showing you as well. Maybe there's some like projects that you are working with other people, like even in that class that I'm taking right now, or that course, that little course I'm taking, there's a lot of collaboration where we read writing aloud to each other. But I feel like for you guys, you got Venus in the 11th house as well. And so like the third and 11th house, these are social houses. And I'm wondering if you guys listened to my February overview video, like have you been kind of feeling more hermity, or have you been feeling like you're not out there in the world? Well, Jupiter turned direct in your sign on the 4th, so maybe that's changing. But yeah, watch my February overview video because this is telling me like you guys need to be out there working with people, hanging out with people, creating with people, collaborating, just kind of being more social a little bit right now. And yeah, so let me know how that resonates for you guys because it keeps coming up for you. Yeah, make sure to check out the first part of my video as well. If you haven't already, like and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time. Okay, for my Cancer, Sun, Moon, and Rising, we have this full moon happening in your second house. What is the second house? Well, the second house is about money. It's about values, it's about resources, it's about how you spend your money, how you make your money. It is your material possessions, your physical resources, how much you value the self. Now, the first thing that is glaring at me, as always, is this Mars in the first house. And in my February overview video and the horoscopes, I talk a lot about this for you guys because it's a major theme. So we can't forget that. But something around those second house themes is coming up quite strongly for you around this full moon. Something that was began possibly back in August of last year. Maybe around that time, you started a new self-worth journey. Maybe you started a new diet around that time too, because the second house in Indian astrology is also like the food we eat. So maybe there was something around diet. With Mars in the first house as well, Mars can definitely make us care about our health more. Now, it is retrograde, and so that can make it a little bit weaker. But in general, when Mars goes to their first, that's a lot of times people start going to the gym or start caring about their appearance or wanting to make themselves stronger, whether through physical means like working out or through like setting healthier boundaries, oh my gosh, healthier boundaries or standing up for themselves or something like that. So maybe that's part of what's happening. Maybe you started a new job or you started looking for a new job and now you got the job and now you're making money. Or maybe you wanted to start a new budget around August of last year. And now it's finally going into effect and you're seeing the product of that, the fruition of that. However, at the same time, you guys have a Sun Mercury Cazimi that just happened in your eighth house of other people's money. So, for a lot of you guys, I would say more so for Capricorns, but it could also be for you guys too. You could be just receiving like a lump sum of money right now, or just like some money that you didn't expect, like a refund comes in, or a rebate comes in, or your insurance is like you overpaid, like things like that that happen randomly that we all love, right? Like it's so nice to actually get money from people randomly rather than have to spend it. Now, a bill could come up around this time too that you weren't expecting, but we'll focus on the other way around. But you gotta notate both of those things. But I do think you guys are getting some sort of insight around how you can co-create with other people and make money in a way that is congruent to your values. So what I can see for a lot of you guys right now is Uranus going through your 11th for the last 6 years has been shaking up your friendship groups, your networks, your benefactors, your hopes and dreams for the future, because it's trying to make it more true, make it more authentic to you. And during this full moon, it's kind of giving this shakeup and it's saying, like, does the way you make money, the job you have, is that in alignment with the kind of people that you want to be around? So for some of you guys, I could see like being in a job, because the 11th house is organizations as well, being in a job that doesn't actually support your finances or support your values. and you don't have the same shared values as this company or this organization, and yet you are working for them, and Uranus is like, no, no, like Uranus is like, I'm about to leave this part of your chart. I'm about to leave this part of your chart. And he's trying to, or she, I don't know. I always think Uranus is a boy. Anyway, he's trying to shake things up there. And so for you guys, you could be getting hit in like the money sector, or you could have been getting hit in the money sector, especially over the last 6 months. Or now it's beginning to happen because you're recognizing like, no, I want to be in organizations that actually mean something to me. I want people around me that mean something to me. It's not just about the money anymore for me. I've seen beyond that. But you're getting some sort of an insight too around shared resources. Like maybe this is a new way of making money that includes having clients or working with other people's money. So like banking or investments or something like that. But ultimately, I feel like this is, and the eighth house is also about intimacy and shared emotional values. So maybe you're seeing that there is some sort of a limitation or a problem around working with other people or sharing with other people. And that is what has kept this 11th house stagnant. You know, Mars, I mean, Cancers are very private people. They're very private and protective of their emotional self. And so when it comes to the eighth house matters, yeah, it sometimes can get a little difficult for them to like really share in that emotional experience, even though they're a very emotional sign. Pluto's here for the long haul, so it's definitely wanting you to grow and evolve and transform through this part of your chart. So let's see if the tarot has anything for you. Let's see. This is advice, okay? This is advice for my Cancers for this full moon. I feel like this is picking up strongly on that Kazemi. This is like new inspiration, a new spark that is coming alive around this time. I would say, a few days before, a few days after, maybe even longer. There's like a desire to go on a more creative path or a more spiritual path. And actually, this makes a lot of sense because you've got North Node, Neptune, Saturn conjunct in the ninth house, which is very faith-based. And then you've got Jupiter just started going direct in your 12th house, which is very spiritual as well. So, and this is spirituality and creativity, a creative idea, a spiritual idea that you guys are having, some sort of insight that you're getting around this time. And this is, or even that you're just feeling creative now. You're feeling this spark of creativity and spirituality come back into your life at a point in which maybe it had been squandered for a long time. Like I said, when you have Mars in your sign, but it's retrograde, there's a lot of like inner work that has to be done around identity and yourself and how you show up in the world. And so maybe that's kind of where you've been occupied, and now it's allowing you to say, hey, like because you as a Cancer, these full moons affect you guys quite strongly. When the moon is full, you're feeling very emotional and you're feeling quite raw in a sense because your planet is like wide out in the open, whereas other times of the month, like during a new moon, it's hidden. We can't see it. And now it's like, yeah, something's being illuminated to you guys, but I think like this is giving me that it's a positive thing, that it's bringing something back to you guys that you maybe felt like you had lost. So Cancers, let me know how that resonates. Make sure to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time. Okay, for my Leo sun, moon, and rising, this full moon is about you. Yay, we love that. So this is a culmination of something that was began back in August of 2024 around your identity, around your appearance, around yourself, around your attitude to the world, your perspective, your approach to life. This could have signaled a new beginning in some way that is now you're seeing the fruits of that labor. So with the first house, it can be so many things. Like it can be health. It could be a health journey because the first house is associated to the body and the health of the body. It could be that you wanted to change something about your appearance or show up in a new way, and now that's coming to fruition. And depending on if it's sun, moon, or rising that you're listening for, that can kind of change things as well. But there's also this balance that's needing to be struck between you and your relationships, right? So like my question to you guys right now is how much energy is going to your relationships right now? Is it too much? Is it not enough? Maybe before or around this full moon, you're getting a really big sort of illumination around relational styles, around how you relate to other people, the relationships you have, what you need in terms of partnerships right now. This is big for you guys because obviously it's your first and your seventh house with your angular houses, but you also have Uranus in the 10th house putting some tension on this full moon as a T square, but also bringing in like revolutionary insights around your life path and what that means for your relationships and what that means for your identity. In order for you to become fully authentic in terms of your career, your legacy, your reputation, your public life, your goals and achievements, who do you have to be? What kind of relationships do you need to have? Are there disparities between those ideals and what is currently actually happening in your life? Because Uranus, by the time Uranus is done with you, many of you guys will completely shift careers from 2018. And Uranus is moving out of the sign into Gemini this year. So it doesn't mean you have to change. Maybe you're approaching your career in a completely different way. Because if your career is very authentic to you, then that could definitely not make you change your career. But for people who have chosen a path that is not really authentic to them, Uranus is like putting stressors on this. Like, okay, who do you have to be in order to achieve this? Who do you have to be in order to have the relationships that you want in your life as well? And creating some sort of a balance around you and others. And yeah, bringing in any sense of collaboration that's necessary right now. Now, during this full moon, you still have Mars in your 12th house and it's retrograde still. Yeah, listen to your dreams. In the February overview video, and actually in the beginning part of this video, I talked about dreams too. So make sure you listen to those if you haven't. But especially for you, be having Mars retrograde in the 12th right now, a lot of energy going into like the background of things and not so much like about the identity in a big way, a new direction in the identity, because Mars is going to go back into your first, and that's going to be a great time for you. But right now you're building the foundations in the background. But there's a lot of energy that is meant to go towards like rest, meditation, solitude, healing, closures. This is a great place for you to like identify any self-limiting beliefs that are keeping you from not doing what you truly love, what you find meaning and purpose in. This is like a great way to use Mars in the 12th house for sure. And also some physical activity won't hurt you guys for definitely because this is looking to the 6th house, but just don't do anything that's too crazy while Mars is retrograde. Let's see if there's any advice for my Leos for this full moon. The 6 of Cups. So this is a lot to do with the past and childhood memories. Some of you guys could be traveling. Mars on the 12th about travel. Some of you guys could be traveling or thinking about your childhood. For a lot of you guys, this is about healing those childhood patterns. Like I said, with Mars in the 12th specifically, a lot of these like subconscious woundings that you have that are keeping you stuck in all of your life because the 12th house rules is the subconscious, which rules every aspect of our lives. This could also be like you reminiscing about the past, and in some ways, like with this full moon in your sign, moving into the future and being sad of letting go of the past versions of you that can no longer like come with you because you're recognizing, especially as Mars goes into your first house, that there's this big change that's going to be happening in terms of your direction and your path. And so leaving behind like the older versions of you, sending love during this time to those past versions of you that can't come along for the ride anymore. Yeah, this is a beautiful card actually. So Leos, let me know how this resonates for you guys. Make sure to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time. All right, so for my Virgo sun, moon, and rising, you guys have this full moon in Leo happening in your 12th house. Your 12th house is a house of spirituality, solitude, retreat, overseas travel. It's a house of your subconscious beliefs, your self-undoing, being in retreat, being in solitude, spirituality. Those are like the main themes. Some of you guys could be definitely going overseas around this time or traveling really far away because this is the 12th house. You also have Uranus in the ninth, which is travel, which is indicated in this full moon as well. So definitely a thing that some Virgos could be wanting to do, or maybe something that you planned back in August and now you're doing it, or maybe in August you decided you wanted to travel more and you've been doing that. Or maybe in August of last year, you started this journey around spirituality. Maybe you wanted to meditate more. Maybe you wanted to be in solitude more, retreat, and have more of a spiritual life. You could have also started some sort of like subconscious work around this time that is now coming to a completion. And a lot of this, though, ultimately for me has to come back to some level of health and what you find to be emotionally and mentally and physically healthy for you. Pluto's here for the long haul, and then you've got Sun and Mercury cazimi that just happened days before this full moon, and they're still conjunct right now in your 6th house. Ultimately, what's happening is that your beliefs are changing. Your philosophy on life is changing. Your spirituality is changing. There's a lot of changes that have happened since 2018 around what you find to be true in life, your philosophy, what you feel like the purpose of life is. And so, right now, those changing beliefs are kind of putting some pressure on your day to day mundane life and also your spiritual life. So Uranus in the ninth could be saying things like, now that you have a different set of beliefs, maybe you're more spiritual now, maybe you have a new religion, maybe you have a new faith, maybe you believe in Buddhism now, or you have this philosophy on life, or you've changed your you've gone back to school and decided to pursue higher education or something. From that, you have a new meaning of life, new purpose from all those things. And it's saying like, okay, but does your day to day reflect that? The 6th house is also your job. So does your job reflect these new beliefs? Does your emotional health reflect these beliefs? If you are now in a state where you're like, I'm religious now. I decided to become a Christian. Okay. Well, are you praying? What is your relationship looking like on a really deep level? What are you doing when are you practicing solitude and retreat in order to gain a deeper understanding about those things? Or are you going to church? Right? The 6th house. Like, what are you doing out in the physical world? Because this axis right here, I'll say this, is my favorite axis. I love the 6-12 axis. This is about like being out in the world, work, responsibilities, health, duty, service, obligation. And this is behind the scenes service to humanity and our wholeness and the health that comes with that. Whereas this is more like mental and physical health, I would say, maybe more mental, and it's like mental and physical, and this is more like the deep emotional subconscious health, the wholeness that becomes of you when you are actually a completely healthy person. You guys have South Node in the 1st house. It's hard not to talk about that whenever we're talking about anything right now, because this is creating some level of confusion around your path and who's supposed to be on your path with you and who's good for you and who's not good for you. Yet this is actually something that is really important for you during this time for the next 18 months is, who am I and who are the right people for me and how do I relate to them and is that correct for me? So ultimately, I feel like, and I could see that with Mars in the 11th too, because Mars is cutting. And so for some of you guys, and I talked about this more in the February horoscopes, I think, but so some of you guys, this could be that you are sorry, I got something. Sometimes as I'm talking, if you notice that I start doing that, it's because I got an insight and my mouth is already moving and my head gave me another insight. Mars is cutting out people who don't support you, right? Or you're cutting them out and you're saying like, no, this is not the right organization for me. You're seeing really right now, like who actually has got your back. The message that I was getting was around the fact that, yeah, there's some, like, I feel like for some of you guys, you've been fighting really hard to maintain some sort of spiritual peace. And maybe you're getting some fruits of your labor around this time. So whether that's in terms of like feeling at peace internally, or getting a new job, or having a new level of health and feeling healthy, or feeling connection to source more than ever. I think this is coming into fruition for you guys right now. Your ruler being in this conjunction in the sixth makes me feel like there's a heavy emphasis around this time around work, health, illness, service. What am I giving to the world, right? This is your guys' house, the sixth house. What am I giving to the world? How am I being of service? What are my duties, my responsibility? This is also a house of litigation, so some of you guys could be going through litigation as well. Let's see if the tarot has any advice for you guys during this full moon. I mean, I could just talk forever. I have to stop myself. And I was saying earlier about like Uranus putting pressure on this, and also it could also be giving you really unique insights into your health, into illness, into work, into service, obligation and duty, or your spirituality and solitude. So it's not all just pressure and bad. It could be sparking something to recognize, like, oh, based on my new belief systems, like, is my day-to-day responsibilities, are they in alignment with that? Is the way that I perform duty and service for others in alignment with these new beliefs? That's what Uranus wants to really pressure and bring some change into. Some advice for you guys around this full moon. This is so interesting. I just got this card for Leos. So if you're a Leo sun, moon, rising, and a Virgo sun, moon, rising, somewhere in there, this is really big theme for you guys. Six of Cups is a lot about the past and childhood. And so some of you guys, like I said, you could be traveling. Maybe some of you guys are traveling back to a place where you have memories, or you were born, or something like that. But I also, the way that I saw this coming up for my Leo risings was in the sense that it could be the 12th house situation that you guys have going on with the moon back here, of revisiting old memories and reconnecting in some ways with the past versions of you, because they had it in a different, Leos have a different thing going on, obviously, because they're Leos. But for you guys, like with the South Node in the first, and you guys are stripping old identities, old belief systems, old appearances, old ways of relating to others and your path in this world, right? You're shedding all of these things, and maybe in this shedding process, a lot of the things around the past is coming up around. And maybe you're finding, like, I see this as a positive thing, though. It's not like you're gripping onto the past and it's bringing fear. It's more that you're finding joy and inspiration in the fact that you are growing and you're reconnecting with the past, but you're not holding on to it. And so you're able to have this like innocence about you. And this is about like finding your childlike spirit. I feel like Virgos find this more as they get older, because, well, for one, you have Saturn on the fifth, which makes it harder for you to have that kind of sense of fifth house things, that like childhood joy when you're younger, and then as you age it gets easier. But also just because you're like very focused on duty and service and responsibilities, and so then you kind of just don't give a lot of attention to this part of life. And so I feel like this is more about innocence and joy and feeling connected to the past, but recognizing that you are moving into something much newer and more aligned for you now. So, Virgos, let me know how this resonates for you guys. Make sure to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time. Okay, for my Libra, Sun, Moon, and Rising, this full moon is happening for you guys here in your 11th house. Now, what does your 11th house represent? It is friends, networks, communities, online communities, it's organizations you belong to. It's really like about social networks. It's also where you make money from your career, from the 10th house here. And it's also about your hopes, dreams, and visions for the future. So it's about like this yearning for something more and having this big vision because Aquarius naturally rules this house. So it's like broad-minded and thinking more about the future. And for you guys, this could be some sort of a culmination that's happening since August of last year. Maybe there was a new group that you decided to belong to. Maybe you found a organization, you started a new job. Maybe you decided to endeavor or go on this endeavor for finding this hope and vision for the future that you want. And now you're finally seeing that come to light. For a lot of you guys, this could be around finding what organizations are actually supportive for you and which ones aren't, which communities are actually supportive of you and which ones aren't. This is also like an online house, so or yeah, a house that deals with technology, so it could be like online communities as well. But during this full moon, I'm also getting the sense that there is a need for balance with the sun and Mercury in your fifth house, saying like whatever organization groups you belong to that you thought were maybe the best thing for you and maybe they're not, you might be getting some insight into like, okay, what do I want to create in the world, how do I want to express myself, is this organization that I'm in going to, or these groups that I'm in, these benefactors that I have, are they going to be supportive of me expressing myself fully and authentically? Because in a lot, number one, I just want to say your guys' ruler, Venus, is in its shadow and it is going to go retrograde on March 1st in your seventh house, which Venus is not like, it likes being in the seventh house, but it doesn't like being in Aries. And the ruler of Aries, Mars, is retrograde till the 23rd. So you guys may be feeling kind of feeling it right now. Maybe you're feeling more tired or feeling confused because your ruler is not in the best spot right now. And when Mars goes, or when Venus goes retrograde, you're going to have a lot of time to sit with yourself and your relationships and see where things need to change, and your job. We're gonna talk about that later. I'm gonna do a whole video on Venus retrograde. But there's something that's happening really deep in your psyche right now. There are changes that have happened in the way that you relate to people on an emotional level. So maybe with a partner, the way that you share resources with a partner or a business partner have drastically changed since 2018. The way that you view shared values and shared intimacy has changed. And something from the deep recesses of your mind, of your psyche, where the eighth house is pushing you for liberation. And that's coming out for you through creativity, through self expression, through finding the organizations and the people in your life that support who you are at a very deep level. Because Uranus says here, there must be liberation, there must be truth, there must be freedom in the way that you relate, in the way that you have shared finances. Some of you guys may be feeling some sort of like, maybe you're in a job that, because I feel like there's a lot of job and health and illness stuff going on for you guys. So maybe you feel like you're in a job that is not, that maybe like, maybe it's making you money, maybe it's not, I don't know, but it's not fully supporting you on a really deep level. Or maybe you're in a relationship because Venus is in the seventh house that is making you feel that way. I feel like for a lot of you guys, the confusion could also be around not just like relationships, but also your career with Mars going back in the 10th house. Listen to my February video for more information about all the other transits that are happening. But I really do feel like for a lot of you guys, there's so much confusion around work and legacy and career and your achievements. Like, what do you want to achieve in this world? And what goals do you want to set for yourself? And I feel like this is really, this full moon is lighting something up within yourself that makes you want to focus on you, right? Because Libra is the sign of the other, right? And with your ruler in Aries and this highlight of your fifth house, I feel like you're gonna get like this hit of inspiration. Let's see what the advice is for Libras. Hit of inspiration around this full moon that's like, no, I deserve to be in places that cater to me too. I don't always have to just do what is for everybody else. So I feel like for some of you guys, there could be a sense of deception I feel like that would mostly come around work and health issues, honestly, and not be so much related to this 5th and 11th house. But the way I could see it being related to the full moon is the fact that this card is not just about other people deceiving us, but about us deceiving ourselves. You guys have the South Node in your 12th house, and this is giving you guys ample opportunity to work for the next year and a half on your subconscious limiting beliefs. And that's where a lot of the self-deception lies. And it looks directly to your 6th house, where you have all this other stuff about health, work, illness, pets, responsibilities, duty, service, obligation, litigation. So that's definitely coming up. And I also feel like in a lot of ways that impacts the way that those self-limiting beliefs and that self-deception impacts the way that you are asserting yourself or not asserting yourself around this full moon. Meaning, like, is there a part of you that caters to others? You got the 11th house implicated, you got the 7th house implicated. These are social houses of others. Is there a part of you that feels like you relate to others and you please other people so you don't have to take responsibility over your needs? Because it's just easier for you to think about other people and to do what they want and to not create conflict. That's that this is a card of like not taking responsibility, because that in some ways that's deceptive, right? Like you're wanting to run away from something that is meant to find you, that is, and with Pluto in the 5th, this is gaining authority and having these struggles internally and this transformation of your self-expression and your needs. This is ruled by the sun naturally. It's not about the other. So I think for you guys, this is a really like huge time for reclamation of your needs, your desires. And if the people and the communities and the organizations that you are surrounded by are going to support that or not, or if you need to find new ones. Let me know how this resonates for you guys. Make sure to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time. My Scorpios, sun, moon, and rising. You guys have this full moon in your 10th house of Leo, specifically if you have anything around 24 degrees of Scorpio or any other of the fixed signs. This is a big one for you because it's implicating your 10th, 4th, and 7th house. Uranus in the 7th, man, that's been in there since 2018, and it has been really shaking up your relationships and demanding truth and authenticity in your relationships. It's demanding of that of others, and it's demanding of that of how you relate to them. So there's probably been a lot of changes there. Oh, and a card just dropped. Oh, let's see. I don't want to bend down. Oh, interesting. You guys got the same card as your counterpart. I don't feel like bending down. As your opposite sign. Interesting. Okay, let me just finish talking about the astrology though. Yeah, lots of shakeups in your relationships, and now those shakeups in your relationships are putting you on a new career path. I want you to think back to August of 2024. What was going on around then regarding your career, your legacy, your public status, your achievements that you want to set? What goals did you want to set out to achieve? What did you want to do in your public life? How has that shifted now? How has that come to fruition? Is something being illuminated to you about your path, about your career, about your legacy and reputation? Because I'm wondering if the changes in your relationships are putting this sort of pressure on your, not just all those 10th house things, but also your internal world, where you have Pluto, your ruler, in the deepest part of your chart. Scorpio risings are entering a period with their ruler in the 4th house for 19 years, where you are going very, very deep into your emotional foundations, into your past, into memories, into childhood, to see what are the deep emotional foundations that are holding you back in this lifetime and to transform them. You're getting some insight here around what needs to change internally on an emotional level or in your home life. This could be your physical home. What needs to change in your physical home as well, or in your relationship with your parents, in order for you to have complete authenticity within yourself and also within your life path and your career. Your other ruler, Mars, is currently still retrograde in your ninth house. So redoing a lot of beliefs. I can't remember. Make sure you listen. I have a February 2025 horoscopes and overview video. Make sure you check that out for your monthly overview. But I feel like in there I talked about how I feel like you guys are being like tested by your beliefs. The high priestess, I would naturally associate this with the 12th house, but you guys don't have anything happening in your 12th house right now. But like with your other ruler retrograde in your ninth house, this is also kind of giving me a little bit of the same vibes because when your ruler is retrograde, it brings more introspection into your life. You don't feel like you have as much energy to fight for things that you would normally fight for. And so maybe for your belief systems, like you're cutting certain beliefs out and bringing in new ones. Yeah, something major is changing and it's putting during this time, a lot of stressors on figuring your life out in some sense regarding your emotional home and your home life and your career and also your relationships. And I feel like the answer right now is buried very, very deep within. And what that is going to require of you is to do a lot of introspective work and tune into your intuition. I want to see if this is, yeah. I already got this card too earlier, so that's really interesting. Tune into your intuition because there is a new path for you guys. And this could be in a lot of different areas of your life because tarot doesn't discriminate. It just gives me the messages. But I feel like this is very creative or spiritual for some of you guys. So creativity or spirituality is coming in strong, but you have to decide on a path now. You have to decide on a path. And that no one can tell you that path. You have to make that decision on your own. These are the things that happen when you have heavy fifth house influence and when your ruler is retrograde. Like, obviously, people love you and support you, but it feels like this is a very solitary decision that you have to make, even though there are people around you. Or even if there's not people around you, it still feels like a solitary decision that you have to make. Scorpios, let me know how this resonates for you guys. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. For my Sagittarius, Sun, Moon, and Rising, you guys have a full moon that's happening in your ninth house. So, the ninth house is about where we find meaning and purpose in our lives. It's a house of philosophy, spirituality, religion, higher education, law, and legality. It's about travel as well. So, some of you guys could be traveling around this time or fulfilling some sort of travel commitment that you made back in August of 2024. You could be expanding your knowledge. This is a house of teaching, but it's also the house of learning. It's a teaching and learning up here, and then down here it's also teaching and learning, but a little bit more learning. You could be seeing some sort of fruition to some effort around those ninth house things that you started around 6 months ago. Maybe there is a legal case that is now coming to a fruition that you started back in August, or that is now finally starting to kind of get going or something. Maybe you applied for school and now you're gonna go for school. You wanted to see, do I want to go to school? And now you decide you want to go to school or you don't want to go to school. The cool thing is that during this time, you've got Uranus in the sixth, giving you some tension, but in order to grow and be more authentic in this part of your chart around learning and teaching and beliefs and thoughts and words and communications. But around this full moon, or maybe a few days before it, you could be getting some sort of an insight. And it being in your third house, it could really just be like this like electrifying thought that you have around your immediate, around your immediate surroundings and how that relates to your health and your work. So what I could see this as is like Uranus is sitting here in your sixth house since 2018, has been trying to shake up this part of your life. Maybe you've had a lot of changes in your job. Maybe you've had a lot of changes in the way that you provide service to the world. You've had a lot of changes in your health or with your pets. And all of this stuff has been bringing up change unexpectedly, possibly shocking revelations, things like that, in order for you to be more authentic in your truth. And so right now, it's saying like, what have we learned about that? And how is that shaping our belief systems? And also, are we having enough balance around taking care of our day-to-day needs, as well as having a broader vision for the future? Right? Because ninth house is very broad-minded. It's Jupiter. So it's kind of like a little bit like Aquarius, like it's more future-oriented. Whereas the third house, where you have Sun, Mercury, and Pluto, is very much concerned with the present right now. What are the facts? What are the details? What's going on around me? This is about your immediate surroundings, your day to day, your cousins, neighbors, siblings. So something you could be illuminated something about them as well. This is also how you communicate and how you think, your thought process, and how you learn and learning new skills. So maybe you're getting some insight into like you have to learn a new skill, or you have to learn you have to take a course in order for you to reach this broad vision, or in order to get this new job. You're recognizing like more skills are necessary. But also it's making sure that you're not getting too focused on the mundane reality of life and the day to day and what am I doing right now and what's happening, because maybe there's tension there, or I don't know, maybe there's a lot going on, maybe you're feeling like super busy, and this full moon is saying, okay, if you're feeling super busy and you're just focusing on your day to day, look up. That's what I always feel like when I'm looking at the third house, the ninth. It's like, look up and see the forest for the trees. Like, don't, is that the right way to say that? I don't know. But see like the bigger picture and make sure that you're balancing that out. Vice versa, I feel like that's most people, is they're more focused on their immediate surroundings, and they need to be reminded, "Hey, what's the big picture here? What kind of goal and where do you find meaning and purpose in this world?" And don't forget about that as you're going about your day to day and just doing like random busy work things. But for others of you, it could be the opposite. Like you're putting too much emphasis on the vision, and then your day to day is not adding up to that. And so this is going to give you some insight around that, because ultimately, if your day to day and your visions are not aligned, then your job or your health is probably suffering in some way. And your money. Let's see if there's any advice for my Saggies. Okay, this I feel like is calling to Jupiter going direct on February 4th in your seventh house of other people and relationships. I talked about this in the February 2025 horoscopes that I did, I believe. I should have. But to me, this is just saying that maybe through all of those processes that I've been talking about, you have learned the importance of partnership, whether or not that is around romantic partnerships, or if it's just partnerships in general, friendships, having mutual understanding with other people, feeling like you have a connection with others, right? Like this doesn't have to just be like soulmates. This is just about not going it alone and finding mutual understanding with other people. So I wonder, in the February 2025 overview video as well, I did a tarot card reading about balancing, self with the other and all this stuff. So check that out if you haven't already. But I wonder if this Jupiter going direct is opening up these like new possibilities of working with other people, because there's a lot going on in your guys' fourth house as well, which is making me feel like you're going through a lot emotionally and internally, and your third house is like your thoughts as well. So maybe this is like the clarity that you're getting around these issues of like getting too caught up in the day to day and having a broader vision for the future. It could also be something to do with relationships. Like, are you nitpicking in your relationships? Or because Gemini can sometimes do that, or are you kind of allowing more, and you guys have a tendency to allow for more expansion, right? Because you're ruled by Jupiter, but I'm wondering if all this energy is creating more of like a nitpicky, and no, that person's not right for me, and this isn't right, and you're doing this wrong. In the first part of this video, I talk about this energy with the human design. make sure you guys listen to that because I feel like that's coming up really strongly for you guys. And maybe that's what this full moon is kind of like showing you guys is that you're getting too caught up in the details of everything of your work, of your relationships, of your life, of your like everything. Like it's illuminating you to this bigger picture during this time. Yeah, that was a lot. Sometimes when the tarot brings my attention to something very different than what I was talking about, it's like, oh, this is interesting, you know? All right, let me know how this resonates for you guys. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. So for my Capricorn, Sun, Moon, and Rising, let's see. Okay. You guys have a full moon that's happening in your 8th house. Your 8th house is about partnerships on a deep level, the give and take between you and another, emotional intimacy, shared resources, deep psychological healing. We can see addictions in the 8th house as well. So when you have a full moon here, there could be something that is culminating from about 6 months ago. So back in August of 2024, something around shared resources, something around emotional intimacy, or maybe you started doing some deep psychological work. Maybe you started going to a therapist or just deciding to read more about psychology or heal some sort of an addiction that you have. Because at that time, well, just a few months after that, you guys had Mars go into the 8th house of Leo, and that could have really jump started that as well. But maybe there was something that you wanted to do around that, healing old emotional patterns, healing emotional pattern or healing wounds around money and sharing money with others. Oh, I also want to say when you have a full moon in the 8th house, this is a time when you could be getting like random money. Money that isn't yours, that isn't earned. So something like you overpaid and now they're sending you back money, or you're receiving some sort of compensation because something went wrong. Something like that could definitely be happening on this full moon, which is awesome. Some of you guys could be getting like a bigger tax return than expected or something. So that's really great news. But yeah, this also could be like a culmination of effort that was put in, and also this could be your partner because the 8th house is other people's money. So this could be like your partner is all of a sudden coming into some money or something, or they're getting some lump sum, which you get to then enjoy because it's shared resources. But it's also looking to your 2nd house, which has the Sun Mercury conjunction, which had a cazimi not too long ago before this full moon. So there's some sort of balance that needs to be struck between shared resources, your resources, shared values with others, and your own value, your own sense of worth. Having the Sun and Mercury in the 2nd, you could get an idea around like making money, and it could be creative in nature because you've got Uranus in the 5th squaring them both actually. So something is changing about your self-expression. Something is changing away about the way that you want to express yourself, maybe creatively, maybe with your children. Maybe this is about romance and love. And it's bringing the possibility of new insights on how to make money. Maybe you're getting more creative about making money. Maybe you're recognizing, like, oh, I don't have to do it the way that I've been doing it or the way that I've been told that I need to do it. Because Saturn ruling your guys' sign tends to make you more traditional. Not always, of course, you have to look at the whole chart. But Saturn's very mystical as well. But a lot of times with Capricorn specifically, yeah, there is a sense of desire for security and stability. So they will go more traditional routes sometimes. This is being kind of changed for you guys as your ruler Saturn is in the sign of Pisces, the dreamy, mystical sign of Pisces where it dissolves, where Saturn goes and it dissolves. So you guys are being opened up to this new way of living. And I think it's a way that is much more authentic to your sense of self-expression, right? The 1st and the 5th house have a lot to do about how we express ourselves in the world, what we want, what our desires are, what we want for ourselves. And for you guys, this is coming through financially and within relationships. So yeah, this could have been a time over the last 6 months that you've been thinking about, like, how do I want to make money? How can I make money without having to work for it as hard, right? Like passive income. And you could be getting some like business ideas or some side hustle ideas during this time. And it's coming from a very creative place, wanting to bring more authenticity in your self expression. Let's see if there's any advice for my Capricorn, Sun, Moon, and Rising from the tarot. Okay, very interesting. So this makes me feel like very clearly some of you guys are feeling betrayed. Some of you guys are feeling, yeah, this makes me feel like you're feeling betrayed and that something is ending and it is not ending you're not happy about it. It's not, and for some of you guys it could be a relationship because you got Mars in the 7th. But really the tarot doesn't discriminate. It doesn't tell, I don't know which part this is happening in. Could also be the 6th house, Jupiter just turned direct. Obviously, I feel like for you guys, actually, I feel like it's more to do with finances because we've got the 2nd, 6th, and 8th implicated here. But you have to keep in mind Mars in the 7th retrograde it can make it about relationships. But I feel like something is ending and it needs to end. There is no transforming it. An old way of making money, an old way of relating intimately to another, an addiction cycle is ending. Something's ending because the 10 is the end. What I love about this is it looks really grim, of course, with the swords in the back and feeling really sad and like let down by how things transpired. But there's so much yellow here, which is the dawn. There's a new day that is coming, which means that something new is birthing from this, but it's going to be different. The situation isn't transformative as much. It can, but for a lot of you guys, something brand new. So a brand new job could be coming in. And this isn't less like you're moving positions and it's like a new job, or a new relationship or a new way of making money that you haven't had before, and an old way of making money, an old way of relating intimately to another. Okay, so for my Aquarius, Sun, Moon, and Rising, you guys have a full moon that's happening in Leo in your 7th house. Your 7th house is your house of relationships, pleasure with people. It's your house of interpersonal relating, so how you relate to other people. So, what was going on with your relationships and how you found pleasure within them around August of 2024 of last year? Something was started around that time that is now coming to fruition that has to do with other people. That's really the basis of it. It's either about other people, or so maybe it's like something that happened with your partner or your friend, but it could also be about the way that you relate to other people and the way that your guys' relationship could have been something that's been changing and is now coming to a culmination. You could also be getting some really big insight around yourself, your identity, how you are relating to people, and how you want to show up in the world in your relationships, because you've got this Sun Mercury Kazemi just a few days before this full moon in your 7th house. And then you've got Uranus down here in the 4th squaring both of them. So for you, as well as other fixed signs, especially if you have anything around 24 degrees of Aquarius or other fixed signs, this is all impacting you quite strongly because the full moon's at 24 degrees and then Uranus is at 23 degrees. And so it's Uranus being in the 4th brings unexpected shakeups and changes in your 4th house of your physical home and your internal emotional foundation, your internal home. Now, around this time, with this full moon in the 7th house that you're having, this could be the reason as to why your relationships with others are changing, because there has been massive changes undergone over the last 6 years regarding your inner home and your outer home as well, your physical home, maybe your relationship with your parents. And this is kind of what could be instigating you to show up in the world in a different way, to show up in your relationships in a different way around this time. With Pluto in the 1st, you have 19 more years of this transformation of the self, of the identity, of the appearance, of the body, depending on where you have Aquarius, if it's Sun, Moon, or Rising. that's going to make a little bit of a difference, but not too much. It's going to be the same themes there. And when you have Pluto in the first and you have Sun, Mercury in the first, it's looking to the seventh, yes, and Uranus in the fourth, and it's looking to the 10th. So these changes in your home life and your emotional world could also be leading you to a new type of career, but the emphasis is on the internal, right? Because it's like here, wherever you want Uranus goes, it wants the liberation, it wants truth, it wants honesty, authenticity. You have to get really honest with yourself about how you're showing up in the world and the types of relationships you're having. And I could also see for some of you guys with all this stuff happening in your guys' sign, like, are you neglecting your partnerships? Are you neglecting your relationships? Are you neglecting having fun with other people? In my February 2025 overview, I did a collective tarot card reading. Make sure you check that out if you haven't. And I talked a lot about this balance that we're looking at during this month around, are we hanging out with people too much? Are we not hanging out with them enough and just like really hermiting because we've got a lot of stuff going on in our own lives? Yeah, I mean, you've got the first, second, and third house that are quite full, and even the fourth, and then you've got the fifth. You've got a little bit of things spaced out, but look at this conglomerate more of the first and second. So this is like more your immediate. So maybe you have a lot of stuff going on and you're neglecting relationships. We know that Aquarius is a sign of others and humanity. And so that's not something you guys, as much as you guys have this feeling that you are very different, you like to do this journey with other people. You're not someone who really likes to be the lone wolf. Sometimes you may find yourself in that position, but you like to be around others. You like to have community. You like to be in partnerships. That's one of the things like people always say about Aquarius is like, oh, they want to just be independent. And in a lot of ways, yes, I agree. But I also, most Aquarius people I know are always in relationships because they like being around other people. It's a social sign. So if they're not in a relationship, they like to have a lot of friends or something. They're not kind of that lone wolf energy. They like to be surrounded by. So are you spending time with the people that you care about? How have you been relating to other people? Is there some balance needed there? Maybe you'll get some insight. So someone maybe will say something to you like, "Hey, I know you got a lot going on, but you're neglecting this relationship and it's making me really sad." And then that's Uranus is gonna come up and ask for change. Like, how do we balance these two things? And in a way that is more authentic to who the changes that you've made over the last 6 years, emotionally, internally, that you've gone through. Let's see if the tarot has any cards for you. My tarot deck is all flipped around. Advice for Aquarius for this full moon. Wow, the Empress. The Empress, to me, this is probably picking up on all the stuff happening in your second house because the second house is very earthy. The Empress is the creator. She's the mother. She is the ultra feminine. She's got Venus's glyph here. So this could also be something, yeah, I mean, to me, this feels like relationships, but also this is a time for you guys to really ground down into the feminine, earthy, creative womb, it feels like. Almost as though you need to be grounding yourself in nature, creating something, focusing on relationships and love and beauty. Yeah, Venus is coming up very strongly now, and you've got Venus and Aries in the third house. Yeah, I mean that could be bringing up your desire to want harmony in your immediate surroundings, but also Venus and Aries with Mars retrograde is like there may be some contention in your immediate surroundings with your neighbors, siblings, cousins, the people that are routinely around you. Even though you're wanting some more harmony, but there could be some discord there right now. So, but this is telling me the fact that it's a major arcana. I didn't just get like a minor arcana card that would point to this is like you're in this nesting stage right now. It feels as though a lot of change is coming for you guys. And I that's really for everybody. But for you guys, I do see a change in your earthly life. So money, career, your relationships, because she came up, and also because of this full moon being in your house of relationships. Feeling grounded, go out there and create. Where can you invite in more of the feminine principle with it, which is creation and which is patience, receiving rather than being out in the world and Mars in the sixth can sometimes, I've talked about this, it's retrograde, but still it can sometimes like bring a lot of fight to you. Like maybe you feel like you've had to fight a lot recently. And the Empress is asking you to like root down in this like stillness. Whenever I see this card, it just gives me that advice of like go create, go on a hike. This like very mothering earthly energy. So a lot of times when this comes up for a personal reading, someone could be pregnant or they're wanting to on the precipice of like creating something. There's something I have to throw out there for a general reading. But yeah, it's feeling like you guys are really having to tune into the feminine right now and into the unknown, especially around relationships, money, and career. And possibly for some of you guys, health, but I'm feeling it's more of a financial aspect that's happening and job aspect. All right, Aquarius, let me know how that resonates. What's going on with your relationships? What's changing? What has taken form since August of last year? And I'll see you guys next time. Pisces, sun, moon, and rising. You guys have a full moon that's happening in your sixth house. What is your sixth house? This is the house of work, health, illness, debts, pets. It's a house of duty, obligation, your sense of daily responsibilities. This is where we see unequal partnerships. So maybe like a boss and you, or it's just like your work environment or where you give service to other people. The sun and Mercury, though, are sitting in your 12th house, in your house, naturally ruled by Pisces, and they're staring at this. So this is what I could see. Some of you guys may be needing to strike some sort of a balance between being out in the world and doing things, working, getting your work out there, running errands, being of service, and having solitude and having that meditation practice. This full moon is bringing any imbalances around this to light so that you can have the opportunity to see something, because the moon is being illuminated. You got a sun, Mercury, Cazimi in your 12th. This is you getting some sort of message, and Uranus is in your third as well, squaring this, some sort of unexpected insight around this full moon that is going to push you into a deeper understanding of your own spirituality, of your own sense of healing and closure. Maybe you'll get some much needed closure so that you can move out into the world and start doing the work that needs to get done out here. Because the 12th house is a place of retreat, and the 6th house is the mundane, is the material world, is your day to day, but on an earthly level. Whereas the third house is a little bit more, it's not as tangible. The 6th house is very tangible. Your daily responsibilities, your diet, how are you eating? How are you moving your body? What is your mental health like? Like it's very tangible. And then the 12th house, of course, is very ethereal and it's very elusive. So this is kind of the balance. And I'm feeling like most of you guys are probably more here, like you've been in a state of retreat. And this month is so much about balance. If you guys watched my February overview video that I did, especially the first part, I did a collective tarot card reading. And this month is so much about making a decision. And that decision is about balancing something. And so for you guys, I feel like this is coming up quite strongly, but also for relationships is coming up quite strongly as well, because there's so much emphasis in your sign that, what is happening with the relationships, because you could be really focused on your journey, and that's kind of like where you're meant to put most of your focus on right now as a Pisces. But also Venus is in detriment. The ruler of that sign is retrograde. So relationships as a whole may be kind of like going to extremes. So like I said, balancing that kind of out. And for you guys specifically, because you've got this heavy first house and then you've got the south node in the seventh. So it's like all this emphasis on you, your beginning, your appearance, your identity, who you are, what you want to do, what path you want to take, what's going on with other people. Like, are other people on board? Are you maintaining those relationships? Life is a series of chapters, right? Like there are chapters in which we focus on the self, there's series or chapters in which we focus on the other, and sometimes we have to focus on work, and we can't always have everything we want at once. like I said, it's definitely like your time to shine. And also, though, whenever we get too on one end, life will always kind of pull us back, right, into the opposite direction. And this full moon could be doing that for you guys, specifically around work as well. So just being aware, like, don't don't neglect your day-to-day earthly existence. This is important. Yes, 12th house, meditation, spirituality, connection, solitude. Yes, all that's very important. Of course, you're speaking to the queen over here of that. I love that stuff. But also, I have my north node is in the 6th house and then my south node in the 12th. So like this lifetime is so much about me like actually going out in the world and doing stuff. And that's kind of the energy that I'm feeling for a lot of you guys is like, yeah, the 12th house is your home, but right now you're being called to like go out into the world and do something and find a balance between those two themes. And like I said, Uranus is in your third, so you could be learning some new skills, and that is attributing to some changes in your work as well. You could be incorporating new skills. Uranus in the third, though, just tells me that like your day-to-day environments have shifted a lot since 2018. Maybe there's been like movement, especially with Jupiter here. There could have been like moving homes or having a lot of change in the homes, changing neighborhoods, possibly. Lots of change in your immediate surroundings and unexpected and shocking changes. And so around this full moon, something like that could happen. But I could also see because this is the house of Mercury. So it's like your thoughts, communication. So someone could say something and it could be really shocking for you, or you could have a thought that leads to a really important insight around work and health and healing. Let's see if the tarot has any final advice for my Pisces. See, that's what I'm saying. It's about, okay, yeah, this is the card of mastery. Mastery through repetition. It's not like the fun, culmination, but it's like where the point of the journey where you put your head down and you work and you work and you work and that is how you master something, is through repetition. This is about work and doing what needs to get done. So around this full moon, that is your advice. Get out there in the world and do what needs to be done. Pretty soon here we're going to have the sun and Mercury moves into your sign on the 14th. The sun moves on the 18th. So pretty soon this it's going to be a lot about you. Also, what were you doing around August of 2024 with your work? Because that is something that is coming to a culmination too. So maybe that's what this is. It's like jazz. Hello, you forgot the most important part of this full moon. The 6-month cycle. It's actually a year-long cycle. But what was happening around August of 2024 regarding your work? Did you set a new goal for yourself? Did you want to change your health? Were you working on some sort of an illness that you have? Was there something around wanting to get a new pet? Did you want to be of service to the world in a new way? And now are you seeing the results of that? This could also just be, yeah, like I said, were you looking for a new job and now maybe you're getting that new job? This is a culmination point for the new moon, that from the new moon that we had in Leo in August of 2024 up until now. And then over the next 6 months, that's going to be waning until we have a new moon again in Leo. So not completely over yet, but you should be seeing some kind of fruition of those things, responsibilities, work, health, illness. Those are the main themes of the 6th house. For some, this could be litigation as well. So legal battles could be seen here, or conflicts. So maybe there's a conflict that was started around 6 months ago that now is finally coming to some sort of culmination or closure. Let me know how this resonates for you guys. Like and subscribe if you like my content, and I'll see you guys next time.